like that. Sorry,
So,
everyone.
we just did a little weird intro where the voice just totally changed and went really, really weird. But anyway, my name's Jenna. We'll start again. I know it's only Tuesday. And I'm talking to Emma about her journey after teaching. So let's talk about a light bulb moment, even get my words in right. Light bulb moment for one of your students when you were teaching, which you just loved and was just one of those wow moments for you.
I think it wasn't necessarily a moment, but like a transition for some students. I taught a bottom set in my first year of teaching who had basically been told that they were going to fail. I taught math. And it was really sad. And I had been told by older, wiser colleagues just to not bother, basically, with this bottom set. And I was like, no, not doing that. That's not me. And basically, I managed to get them from failing to grade C's back in the day because I'm that old now. And I think the light bulb moment was when the kids realised it was possible.
Yeah.
That building them up to actually, do you know what? If we try, this is possible. And that year I got 5 C's out of the bottom set, which was just incredible. And that change of belief in them.
And what do you think prompted that change? Because often was the case that teachers maybe didn't stick around for long enough, or the relationship just wasn't there. What do you think? Because it's more than just the subject content, isn't it?
The relationship, definitely, and the fact that I believed in them. Like I say, older, wiser colleagues had said, if you're struggling with your own time, like, don't focus on them. And it broke my heart because as a new teacher, I was like, surely that can't be how people are. So I think the fact that I came in and I believed in them and I encouraged them and built them up. I mean, it wasn't an easy journey. It took a long time. And the conversations at the end was like, oh, we hated you at the beginning, but actually you're all right. Sort of conversations of they hadn't had anyone that had been tough on them. They hadn't had anyone that had pushed them. They hadn't had anyone that had actually thought, if they work hard, this is possible for them. So I think that made the biggest difference. And that probably transfers even now into my tutoring. It's the same way that I approach all of my students.
I think it also links to that pressure, not that it's an excuse, but the pressure that teachers are under to get that progress and those results, that
100%.
they go to the lengths of focus on these children, don't worry about those, which obviously that's one of the things I didn't like with assessments. It was all about getting the data. So let's talk about your journey through and why you decided to leave teaching. Was there a specific tipping point for you?
So I taught in the classroom for 13 years. In those 13 years, I had 3 mental breakdowns. And every time I just sort of got up, brushed myself down, went back in and thought, it's just me. It's just, I'm just weak. All those other things that we tell ourselves. And then in 2020, I lost my mum and I was 8 weeks pregnant. And I got diagnosed with PTSD because of mum. But I spent time reflecting and realised that although mum's death was traumatic, I wouldn't have been as broken as I was had I not been a teacher, because I was already so low and so broken that trauma on top was already almost on raw wounds. So I decided that I couldn't carry on teaching, and I set up my tuition business as a side hustle to reduce my hours in school and give me the time to look for something else. That didn't happen because the tuition business just snowballed. And I'd ended up taking on other tutors within 6 months, offering second subject within 12 months, and it just ran. But I didn't actually leave until December 23 completely. So I went down to like a 40% timetable. And what actually happened in the end was I had a panic attack in school. And my head of department was really, really sympathetic at the time. Sort of helped me calm down a little bit, but I was still mid panic attack. The bell went and she went, right, okay, now you need to go and teach. And I was like, I can't, I'm literally still hyperventilating. I'm still shaking. Went back into our staff room. And luckily, one of my good friends at the time was like, I'm free, I'll go. It was a class we shared anyway. So he went off and they were doing a test, luckily. So he went off, started them off. And I stupidly calmed myself down and went and took over. I went and taught. And when I look back now, I was like, what the hell was I doing? That was so like stupid. And so I left the school, and trigger warning, I was very close to doing something very stupid. And I just drove straight to my husband's work. And actually, it was one of his colleagues who was only 26 at the time who greeted me, and he told him what had happened. And he was like, so you're leaving now, right? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm done. So that was October 23. I left at the Christmas because I had to go back in and face my demons. So yeah, I left Christmas 2023, so not that long ago. And actually, since I've done that, the business has thrived, and I should have done it earlier.
Oh, we do. When you are in teaching, you are just kind of taught to keep going and keep going and keep going, because they're just the pressure really to keep on, because you want, it's very attached to the children. You want to be there for them, you want to support them, but there's a lot of expectations, obviously. So, in your obviously new tutoring career, how did you manage doing teaching and tutoring? Because I've known a few tutors and still teachers now that do both as a way to eventually get out. Was that harder to manage, or was the tutoring easier because you were in control of it?
The tutoring was easier, definitely, because I was in control. It was a hard balance because I think I checked out of the classroom, really. I knew I wasn't staying. It wasn't going to be long term. So it was almost time balancing, making sure that the kids that I were teaching in school still got good teaching. But my heart was already in the business. It was already focused on that and learning how to run a business. And yeah, like I say, I should have done it earlier because the business thrived when I left. So I obviously wasn't giving anything 100%. So yeah.
But you, just before we move on, a few people have said hi, so I'm just going to say hi so they think I'm not ignoring them and being strange. I think when you have that point of, there's something else, then you start to, but you don't kind of trust yourself, I don't think, initially, because you're used to that permanent job. You're used to, I don't know about you, but I grew up, everyone was like a teacher was a well respected profession to go into. And so I think, depending on your family and your friends, if they're very used to that teacher high standing position, and then you say to them, well, I'm going to leave and do something totally opposite, it takes a while for family and friends to process that. Did you have any, not reluctance from people, but worry maybe? You're leaving a permanent job, a permanent income, even though your business is doing well, society still attaches, oh, that's a proper job.
I
And
think it was the other way around for me.
oh, okay.
So everybody else was really supportive. Like, my husband had been telling me to leave teaching for God knows how long. So everybody else was actually really supportive and cheering me on. It was my own head. I was getting in my own way and thinking, what if this happens? What if that happens? Like, I'm walking away from a pension. I'm walking away from a secure job. And it was that stopped me leaving completely. It was my own head. And I think you're right. Society generally tells us those things. But if it's in your own head, that's like the biggest stumbling block.
Definitely. Your own mind can stop you. So
Yeah.
let's talk about skills then. So what skills do you think you've taken from teaching to tutoring? Because they are, in my opinion, similar but very different in many ways. You can do a lot more as a tutor, personally, I feel, than you can do as a teacher, because you're very restricted as a teacher. Um, as a tutor, you can get to know a child a lot better, you can get to know the family a lot more. Like, I thought I knew families when I was working with children and at school, but until you work with a family, until you talk to them on a weekly basis and you know what's going on behind the scenes, um, then you can really support the students that you're working with, in my opinion. So what skills did you transfer, do you think?
I think the biggest one was probably differentiation, like literally being able to pinpoint where a student's at and then being able to scaffold the learning for them specifically. I mean, I still tutor in groups, so I'm still having to literally meet several learners where they are. But in my other role, so I also run a marketing mentor company. But it's the same thing, whether you're dealing with a child or whether you're dealing with an adult. If you're trying to help them learn and you're trying to help them move forward, you can't do that unless you know where they are. And actually almost that bespoke learning plan for them, that true differentiation so that they get exactly what they need. And I could do it in a classroom, but I couldn't do it as well as I can do now, because like you say, you're so confined in a classroom. You have to do certain things, you have to do it in a certain way, whereas now we can literally mold to whoever we're working with.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what I find. And like, you're not restricted by time. Whereas in a lesson, like, you've got a lot of time in the day, but there's a lot of things to cram in. And the differentiation, like, how we think having 30 plus children differentiate in 6 different ways, you're meant to like physically manage that as well as getting all the resources ready. So, what do you think was the biggest myth or misconception about the world outside teaching, that you discovered after leaving the classroom?
I think it goes back to that, what we were just talking about, that fear of you're leaving a secure job, you're leaving your pension, you're leaving this, that, and the other, a good wage. I mean, not that it's a good wage, is it? But it's, in the grand scheme of things, it's an okay wage. And I think the myth in my head was you're never going to do as well outside of the classroom. You're never going to be in a position where you have as good a pension. You're never going to have as good a wage. You're never going to have the security that you do within school. And actually, yes, running my own business isn't as secure, but I've exceeded what I was earning in the classroom. And I have a pension, and like, I'm okay. I'm safe. There is a lot of scaremongering around leaving teaching, that you shouldn't do it because it's not safe. You're safe in your little teaching bubble. And actually, I'm still safe. If anything, I'm safer because my mental health wasn't safe in the classroom. My physical health wasn't safe in the classroom. Um, I was pushed when I was pregnant and all sorts. Like, I'm safe now and I'm in control of how I teach and who I teach. And if I'm not safe, I can step away from that.
I remember because nobody left teaching when I was teaching back in the day, and I remember the first teacher to go, and it was such a shock. Like, she was an amazing teacher, but like you say, it's like that bubble, and someone goes, so it kind of like pops the bubble, and you're like, oh, people can go, because that was the thing when I went into teaching. Everyone had done it 20, 30 years. You know, once you went in, you didn't come out till you retired.
Yeah.
So for that first teacher, I remember, I don't know, 5 years ago now, whatever it was, and I was like, oh my goodness, she's done it, and she was an incredible teacher. But to me, it was like, well, if she's going, I know something's not right, so I need to change it. So, what is one thing from your experience that you wish parents understood about the immense pressure that modern teachers are under at the minute?
I think I wish they could see all of the bits behind the closed doors. I
Right.
wish that they could, because they see the classroom bit and they see that often we're not doing everything we could do for their child because we can't. And I'm not here to like teacher bash, because I think anybody that's still in the classroom is amazing, but we couldn't physically do everything. And the reason we couldn't was the paperwork, the emotional, the cognitive load that we are nurses, we are counsellors, we are like all these other things that we're expected to do. And it's, I don't think many parents can see that all the time. It's the data, it's the safeguarding, it's the constant scrutiny. We all want to do the best for your child. Like, that is why we went into teaching. No teacher goes into teaching because they don't like children. Like, it just doesn't happen. So we want to do the best for your child, but I wish parents knew that we just physically can't, not in the system as it is.
No. I think I got to a point where I was like, the job is 90% paperwork and 10% with the children. 90% of the time, you are proving what you're doing in the
Yeah.
classroom, because really the job is planning, assessing, teaching. That's all it is, and that can be simplified. But every element of those parts of the job has been so much paperwork attached to it, like planning, medium term planning, long term planning, daily planning, note planning, assessment, long term assessment, medium term assessment, daily assessment, assessments in your folders. Everything has just been because of that lack of trust. So you're having to do paperwork to just prove everything. And
You end,
the
you end
children,
up doing paperwork to prove your paperwork sometimes as well.
exactly.
Like, you're literally duplicating stuff. And what that does to a teacher's energy is by the time they get to a classroom, they've got no energy left. And it's not fair on anyone. It's not fair on the teachers. It's not fair on the kids. Like, it's just, yeah. And I don't think parents see that bit.
I think like the children would be trying to talk to you about something, and like back in the day, it'd be like, how well do you know your children in early years? And I'd be like, oh, they said this and they did this and they did this. Well, have you got the piece of paper to prove it? And I'm like, no, because I was looking at them when I was trying to talk to them and listen to what they were saying. So now you want me to sit down, write it down, not look at them. Just hang on a minute while I write down this, so this Ofsted inspector knows that you've said this on this day at this time. And I'm like, okay, never mind. Right, moving on then. So beyond, obviously, marking is a massive deal in teaching, that kind of thing. What is one specific aspect of the teaching routine that you are generally thrilled to have left behind?
Sounds really silly, but going to the toilet when I want to, like, literally, I mean, there are constantly arguments, aren't there, about kids being
Yeah,
allowed to go to the toilet when they're at school.
teachers always say.
Like, and
Like,
again, people don't realise that teachers can't. We can't just leave a classroom full of kids, like,
No.
and hot cups of tea. I've constantly got my cup of tea on the go. Like, it's just those little things that feel like they're little, but actually they make such a difference. That freedom, that actually I can just act like a grown up.
I've seen a new one recently where some teachers are now told they're not allowed to sit down at all during
We
lesson.
had that for a while
You
at my
can't
last one.
sit down at all. And I don't know how that works in an early years setting, because the kids want you to engage with them, they want you to sit with them, they want to show you their drawing, they want to play with you, they want to talk to you. And so, like, oh, sorry, I can't sit down because otherwise it looks like I'm not working with you. So
Even in
that's
the secondary school, like, you sit down to, I don't know, work on a mini whiteboard with a kid, like, you sit at their level, you don't stand over them and look over them. But it's all those silly little rules that came in that you're like, okay.
As a former, so you were a maths teacher in secondary education, that's correct, isn't it? Right. How has your relationship with the subject changed, and do you still approach problems with a maths teacher's mindset?
I don't think it's changed that much. I always loved maths, but I didn't become a maths teacher because I loved maths.
Oh, okay.
I became a teacher. I wanted to teach. That was always my passion. It
Right.
wasn't like, oh, I love maths, so I'm going to go and teach maths. It
Okay.
was, I want to be a teacher. And actually, at the end of A levels, it was a toss up between teaching English and teaching maths. And in the end, I didn't want to mark essays. So I went down the maths route. But I still love maths, and I love the light bulb moments that kids have with maths. That hasn't changed. And I think that's why I'm still tutoring maths, because I love that spark that comes with it, and the fact that kids like a right or wrong answer. So yeah, I never fell out of love with that. It was never about that.
Right.
It was about the wider stuff.
And knowing what you know now about teaching, if you went back in time and spoke to yourself as a first year teacher, what advice or what would you say to yourself?
Don't be influenced by everyone else.
Oh, that's hard, depending on the school you're in. Oh,
Mm.
really, really hard,
And
especially one
there's
side.
some positives. There are some positives that you can be influenced by. But I think as a young teacher, I was very much trying to fit in.
Mm,
And actually, that fire I had in my first year of, I want to get that bottom set, those C grades, I lost that fire
mm.
because I was influenced by everybody else. And it wasn't until I left that I got that fire back.
I
So I
think,
shouldn't have let them put my fire out, basically.
I think once you get that control back, so I remember like you when I started teaching, you have so many ideas, and then when the reality of the job hits and you've got to get data and you've got to make sure the kids progress. And I remember the days, hours I'd spend planning, making resources for activities, and in the end you went back to the normal standard activities because you needed the assessment results.
Yeah,
um, and you went back to boring activities just to get it, because otherwise you had leadership on your back. I think on your own it's a lot easier when it's your business and you can do it as you
definitely.
wish. But to be fair to leadership, they've got people above them.
Yeah.
They've
And
got
everybody's stuck in this like sandwich. And I think that's the thing is, again, I'm not leadership bashing, like everybody's got a hard job in education at the minute. But the system and certain other people within the system do put out the fire in young teachers, that enthusiasm, that buzz for it. And if I could have been stronger, I would have been.
I think everyone's quite strong when they first go in, And I think that's like, I find that a sad thing for you to say, if I could have been stronger. Because I came across my teaching folders the other day and loads of stuff I'd forgotten about. And I was like, the work I did. And I was like, oh, I actually did do loads of work.
Yeah.
I did put the effort in. And it's just sad that the amount of work and the time you put in is just not enough in some cases. So
No.
that's sad, I find, that you say that. Now, with your marketing hat on, um, what do you, if a school today were a brand, what do you think is the most important message it should be sending out to parents and the community?
It should be values based. It should be about valuing every child as a whole person. It should not be about attainment in terms of grades. Attainment should be measured in achievements, whatever they look like.
Mm,
So it should be, we value every child for whoever they are and whatever they achieve. And it is about the individual children.
mm. I remember when they tried to get me to predict nursery children's SATs results, and I was like, I don't think that's possible. But they genuinely wanted me to predict
That's
between
just
nursery
bonkers.
and and I was just like, anything could happen. There were children that parents passed away, and they, they were so traumatized. Education was the last thing on their mind. So
Yeah,
no, I'm not going to predict a child's future because I don't know what's going to happen to them, because whatever's happening in their personal life will obviously impact their education life, and that is that whole package. So, a couple more questions before I let you go. For teachers watching who are considering a career change, what is the first practical step um, you would recommend they take?
work on your mindset.
Oh,
Before you take the leap, work on your mindset, because I know most of us crashed out of teaching. And when we left, we were so broken that entering into anything else felt too much, felt too big, felt just too much. So I would say, if you can, while you're in the classroom, build your confidence back up, build your self-esteem back up, identify those transferable skills, like make sure that you are okay, because then you will walk into another job or creating a business or whatever the next step for you looks like. You will walk into that a lot easier than if you crash out of teaching and you're burnt out.
mm. And there are lots of options, because I've known there are teachers, like you say, they've left teaching, they've crashed and burned, and they haven't been able to get another job because they just haven't looked after themselves. I have seen teachers have left, and then because they're so used to that work life and that constant being on the go, that quote normal jobs are too easy, and then they go straight back in, and then they're even worse off than they were before. So, you've gone on to do tutoring. Some people, they might not do that. They might take a break, do something else, go and get another job. It's everybody's individual job. There are lots of great schools out there. And it's finding the right school for you and what works for you. So, what's worked for you, Emma? What's worked for me? Is totally different to what other people will be doing. And I just think from this message, do what is right for you, but
Yeah.
don't get to the point where you burn out and you end up like lots of teachers, really. They just keep going and going and going. So, to finish off, where can we find you? What are you currently offering?
So we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all under Core Plus Tuition. So we are tutors online and in person. We do one-to-one and small group tuition. We do the whole range. But also, if you are a fellow business owner, service-based businesses, you can find us under Make Your Marketing Count, where I am a marketing mentor supporting other business owners to build their business.
Oh, perfect. And if you want to look up Emma up, go and find her on Facebook and all the channels she's mentioned. If you're an ex-teacher watching this and wants to share your story, get in touch with me at TD Tutoring. And thank you again for joining me today, Emma. It was lovely to
Thank
chat.
you.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.